The hospital corridor smelled like antiseptic and something deeper, something that clung to the walls when people came to say goodbye. Sofia Mendez adjusted the strap of her canvas tote bag and checked the room number on her phone one more time. 317. The patient wasn't hers, not officially, but Nurse Chin had asked her to check in. Just a quick vitals check, nothing complicated. Sofia pushed through the door quietly, her scrubs whispering against her legs. The room was dim, curtains half drawn against the late afternoon sun. An elderly woman lay in the bed, small and frail, her silver hair spread across the pillow like spun glass. Her breathing was shallow, labored, the kind Sofia recognized immediately. Not much time left. Sofia approached the bed, her steps soft on the linoleum. "Hello," she said gently in English. "I'm Sofia. I'm just here to check on you." The woman's eyes fluttered open. They were dark, clouded with age and pain, but there was sharpness there, still awareness. Her gaze landed on Sofia's face and held. Then she spoke. The words came out broken, desperate, thick with an accent Sofia knew in her bones. "Poor favor," the woman whispered. Alguim que entende. Please, someone who understands." Sofia's breath caught. Portuguese, not the careful, textbook Portuguese she'd studied. This was the language of her grandmother's kitchen, of summer nights in Lisbon, of childhood lullabies she'd almost forgotten. She moved closer immediately, her hand finding the woman's. "Eu entendo," Sofia said softly. "I understand." The woman's eyes filled with tears. Her grip tightened, surprisingly strong for someone so frail. "Você fala," she breathed. "You speak." "Sim," Sofia replied, her own throat tightening. "Eu falo português." The relief that washed over the woman's face was immediate, profound. She closed her eyes briefly, lips moving in what might have been a prayer. If you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. "Quanto tempo?" the woman whispered, switching fully to Portuguese now. "How long I've been here, unable to speak what's in my heart." Sofia pulled the visitor's chair closer, still holding the woman's hand. Protocol said she should check vitals, update the chart, move on to the next patient. But something about this moment felt sacred, untouchable. "What's your name?" Sofia asked in Portuguese. "Maria," the woman replied. "Maria Russo. It's beautiful to meet you, Maria." "I'm Sofia." Maria's eyes studied her face with an intensity that made Sofia feel exposed, seen. "You have your avou's eyes," Maria murmured. "Your grandmother's eyes." Sofia's chest tightened. "You remind me of her, too." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, just the sound of Maria's breathing and the distant beep of monitors in other rooms. Then Maria spoke again, her voice gaining strength. "I need to tell someone," she said. "Before I go. Things I couldn't say in English, things they wouldn't understand even if I tried." Sofia leaned closer. "I'm listening." Maria's gaze drifted to the window, to the city beyond. "I came here so young," she began. 17. Pregnant. Alone. They said America would be kind. She laughed, a small, bitter sound. "America was hard." Sofia squeezed her hand gently. "But I survived," Maria continued. "I built something. Not for myself, for my son. For his future." Her eyes came back to Sofia. "Do you have children?" Sofia shook her head. "No. Someday you will understand then," Maria said. "What you'll do for them. What you'll allow. What you'll hide." Sofia felt a chill run down her spine, though she couldn't say why. "My son," Maria whispered. "He's good. Better than the world he grew up in. But the world doesn't let go easily. It holds on with teeth." "What world?" Sofia asked quietly. Maria's smile was sad. "The one I helped build, trying to survive it." Before Sofia could respond, the door opened. She turned, expecting Nurse Chen or maybe a doctor. Instead, a man stepped into the room, and the entire atmosphere changed. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark suit that probably cost more than Sofia's monthly rent. His face was striking, sharp jaw, dark eyes, black hair cut precise. But it wasn't his appearance that made Sofia's breath catch. It was the way he moved, controlled, aware, like he was constantly calculating the space around him. His eyes went to his grandmother first, sweeping over her with concern that softened his features. Then they landed on Sophia. The air between them felt charged, heavy. "Who are you?" he asked. His voice was low, calm, but there was authority in it, the kind that expected answers. Sophia stood quickly, suddenly aware that she was still holding Maria's hand. "I'm Sophia Mendez. I'm a nurse here. I was just checking on your grandmother." His gaze flicked to their joined hands, then back to her face. Something shifted in his expression, not anger, something closer to surprise. "She doesn't speak English," he said. "I know," Sophia replied. "We were speaking Portuguese." The man went completely still. Not the stillness of relaxation, the stillness of a predator recalculating. "You speak Portuguese," he said. "Sim," Sophia answered without thinking. His eyes darkened. He crossed the room in 3 long strides, stopping close enough that Sophia caught the scent of expensive cologne and something else, something that made her heart race despite herself. "Marco," Maria said from the bed, her voice stronger now. "Say a gentil comme ella. Be kind to her." The man, Marco, looked at his grandmother. His expression transformed, all the hardness melting into tenderness, so genuine it made Sophia's chest ache. "Vovô," he said, his Portuguese perfect, but carrying an American accent. "Como você está?" Maria smiled. "Better now. This angel speaks our language." Marco's gaze returned to Sophia. Up close, she could see the exhaustion around his eyes, the tension in his jaw. This was a man who hadn't slept well in days, maybe weeks. "How long have you been with her?" he asked Sophia. "Maybe 10 minutes," Sophia replied honestly. "And in 10 minutes, you got her to speak more than she has in 3 days?" Sophia swallowed. Language isn't just words. It's home. Something flickered in Marco's eyes. Not softness exactly, recognition. Maria spoke again, her voice weaker now. "Marco senta." Marco pulled another chair close to the bed, but he didn't sit immediately. He looked at Sophia. "Stay," he said. Not a command, a request. "Please." Sophia knew she should refuse. She had other patients, other responsibilities. But the way Maria was looking at her, the desperate hope in those old eyes, made her nod. "Okay," she said quietly. "I'll stay." Marco finally sat. He took his grandmother's other hand, cradling it with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with everything else about him. "Vovô," he said softly. "Okay, você precisa. What do you need?" Maria's eyes moved between. Voice echoed in her head. The daughter of a man who controlled Lisbon's docks. "I came here to expand." And Marco, the way he looked at his grandmother with such tenderness, the way he'd gone completely still when he realized Sophia spoke Portuguese, the way his presence had filled the room like gravity. "Earth to Sophia," a voice said beside her. Sophia blinked. Nurse Chin stood there, eyebrows raised, holding a medication tray. "Sorry," Sophia said quickly. "What did you say?" "I asked if you checked on Mrs. Russo," Chin said. Then her expression shifted. "Wait, did something happen?" Sophia swallowed. She passed. Chen's face fell. "Oh, I'm sorry. I know you weren't with her long, but still." "Yeah," Sophia said quietly. "Still." Chen studied her. "You okay? You look kind of shaken." Sophia forced a smile. "I'm fine. Just tired." That was a lie. She wasn't fine. She was standing in a hospital corridor with a dead woman's confession rattling in her skull and a business card in her pocket that felt heavier than it should. The rest of the shift crawled by. By the time Sophia clocked out, the sun had set and the city had transformed into its nighttime self, all glittering lights and shadows. She took the subway home to her tiny studio in Queens, the card still in her pocket, Marco Russo's name burning against her hip. Her apartment was quiet, almost aggressively normal. IKEA furniture, plants she forgot to water, a stack of books on the coffee table she kept meaning to read. Sophia dropped her bag by the door and went straight to the shower. Under the hot water, she finally let herself think about what had happened. Really think about it. Maria had asked her to help Marco, to be someone outside his world, to remember. Sophia didn't know what Marco's world was exactly, but she could guess. The careful way he moved, the expensive suit, The fact that his grandmother had talked about operations and family with capital letters implied by her tone. Mafia. The word sat ugly in Sophia's mind, but it fit. And Maria had looked at Sophia, a complete stranger, and decided she could be trusted with her grandson's future. That was insane. Sophia should throw the card away. She should forget this ever happened. She should go back to her normal life, where the most dramatic thing was deciding between Thai or pizza for dinner. She stepped out of the shower, wrapped herself in a towel, and stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her grandmother's eyes stared back. "Avu," Sophia whispered to the empty bathroom. "What would you do?" Her grandmother had always said that when someone asks you for help, you help. No questions, no judgment, just kindness because the world was hard enough. But her grandmother had never been asked to help a man who might be dangerous. Sophia dried off, pulled on pajamas, and made tea. She sat on her small couch, the card on the coffee table in front of her, and stared at it like it might explode. Her phone buzzed. A text from her roommate, Lucia, who was visiting family in Brazil. "Lucia, how's the apartment? Did you remember to water my succulent?" Sophia smiled despite herself. "Sophia, your succulent is thriving. Unlike me." "Lucia, oh. What happened?" Sophia hesitated, then typed. "Sophia, I met someone today. It's complicated." "Lucia, good complicated or run complicated?" Sophia stared at the card. "Sophia, I don't know yet." "Lucia, that's usually when it gets interesting." Sophia set the phone down. Interesting wasn't always good. Sometimes interesting was just another word for dangerous. She picked up the card, turning it over in her hands. No logo, no company name, just Marco Russo and a phone number. She should throw it away. Instead, she tucked it into her wallet. 3 days passed. Sophia worked her shifts, went home, tried not to think about Maria or Marco, or the letters in a dead woman's apartment. She failed spectacularly. On the 4th day, she broke. It was raining, that cold November rain that made New York feel gray and endless. Sophia stood under the awning of her apartment building, umbrella in hand, staring at her phone. The card was in her wallet, the number memorized, even though she hadn't meant to memorize it. Before she could talk herself out of it, she typed a message. "Sophia, this is Sophia Mendez. From the hospital. I hope this isn't strange, but I wanted to check if you're okay." She hit send before she could delete it. The response came faster than she expected. "Marco, thank you for asking. I'm managing. How are you?" Sophia blinked at the screen. "How are you?" Like they were normal people having a normal conversation. "Sophia, I'm okay. I keep thinking about your grandmother. She was special. Marco, she was. Thank you for what you did for her. For speaking to her in Portuguese. It meant everything." Sophia's chest tightened. She typed carefully. "Sophia." She mentioned letters. "I don't know if you found them." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. "Marco, I did." Sophia waited. "Marco, some were for me. Some had your name on them." Sophia's breath caught. "Sophia, my name?" "Marco, yes." She wrote them the morning before she went to the hospital. Like she knew. Sophia's hands trembled slightly. "Sophia, what do they say?" "Marco, I haven't opened yours. They're not mine to read. Honorable. Dangerous. Complicated." All those words swirled in Sophia's head. "Sophia, I don't know if I should read them either." "Marco, that's fair. But if you change your mind, I'll get them to you." Sophia stared at the screen, rain drumming on the awning above her. She should say no. She should thank him and wish him well and go back to her life. Instead, she typed, "Sophia, okay. Marco, okay. Sophia, I'll read them. If you can bring them to me." Another pause. "Marco, when?" Sophia's heart raced. "Sophia, tomorrow? There's a coffee shop near the hospital. Quiet place. I'll be there at 3. Marco, I'll be there." Sophia locked her phone and stood in the rain, wondering what the hell she just agreed to. The next day crawled. Sophia worked the morning shift, her mind elsewhere, counting down the hours. By 2:30, she was sitting in the small coffee shop on Amsterdam Avenue, hands wrapped around a mug of tea she hadn't touched. The shop was warm, cozy, with exposed brick and mismatched furniture. Only a few other people scattered around. Safe. Public. Normal. At 3:05, the door opened. Marco Russo walked in, and Sophia's breath caught all over again. He looked different than he had at the hospital. Still dressed well, dark jeans, a gray sweater, a coat that probably cost more than her couch. But there was something softer about him today. Maybe it was the lack of suit. Maybe it was the grief that still lingered around his eyes. He spotted her immediately, navigating through the small space with that same controlled grace. "Sophia," he said, stopping at her table. "Marco," she replied. He gestured to the empty chair across from her. "May I?" She nodded. He sat, pulling a manila envelope from inside his coat. He placed it on the table between them, careful, reverent. "These are yours," he said quietly. She wrote 3 letters. 1 for me, 2 for you. Sophia stared at the envelope. 2. 1, Marco said. She marked read first. "The other says read when you're ready." Sophia's heart pounded. "Did you read yours?" "Yes." "And?" Marco's jaw tightened. "She told me to trust her judgment, to not question why, to let you decide." "Decide what?" He met her eyes. "Whether you want to know more about my world, about why she thought you could help, about what's coming." Sophia swallowed. "What is coming?" Marco was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "My grandmother held together something fragile. And now that she's gone, people are going to try to break it." "People in your family? People who think they know better," Marco said. "People who think legitimate business is weak. People who want to go back to how things were." Sophia processed that. "And you don't?" "No," Marco said firmly. "I don't." Sophia picked up the envelope. It was heavier than she expected. "Why me? Why would she think I could help with any of that?" Marco leaned back slightly. "Because you're outside it. Because you weren't afraid of her. Because you speak Portuguese, and that meant something to her she couldn't explain in English. That's not a good enough reason to trust a stranger." "I know," Marco said. "But my grandmother was—" He paused, searching for words. "She saw things other people didn't. And when she saw you, she saw something that mattered." Sophia opened the envelope carefully. Inside were 2 letters, both in neat handwriting, both sealed. One marked, Primero in Portuguese. "First." She looked at Marco. "Can I read this alone?" "Of course." He stood immediately. "I'll be at the counter. Take your time." He walked away, giving her space. Sophia watched him order coffee, watched the way the barista smiled at him, watched him lean against the counter like he had nowhere else to be. Then she opened the first letter. The handwriting was shaky but clear. Portuguese filled the page. "Query to Sophia. If you're reading this, I'm gone. And if you're reading this, you stayed. You didn't throw away Marco's card. You didn't forget. Good. I don't have time to explain everything, but I need you to understand one thing. Marco is good, better than his blood, better than his name, better than the world that shaped him. But good isn't always enough. Sometimes good needs help. Sometimes good needs someone who believes in it without condition. I'm asking you to be that person. Not because you owe me anything. Not because it's fair. Because I looked at you and saw kindness that wasn't performance. And that's rare, Menina. Rarer than you know. The second letter will explain more. But only read it if you choose this. Only read it if you're willing to step into something you don't understand yet. Choose carefully, but choose honestly. Calm amor, Maria." Sophia stared at the letter, her vision blurring. She read it again, then again. She looked up. Marco was watching her from the counter, his expression careful, guarded. She gestured him back. He returned to the table, sitting without speaking. "She asked me to help you," Sophia said quietly. "I know." Without explaining why. Without telling me what I'm agreeing to. Marco nodded. That's how she operated. Faith first. Understanding later. Sophia laughed. A short, disbelieving sound. "That's insane." "Yes," Marco agreed. "But it worked for her for 80 years. Sophia looked down at the second envelope. Heavier. More pages inside. "If I read this," she said slowly, "if I decide to, I don't even know what. Help you. What does that mean?" Marco leaned forward, his eyes intense. "It means you be someone I could talk to. Someone outside the noise. Someone who could translate more than just words." "Translate what?" "My grandmother's wisdom," Marco said. "Her letters apparently contain things she never told me. Instructions, warnings, advice. He paused. In Portuguese, which I understand but don't always interpret the way she meant it. Sophia processed that. So you want me to read her letters and explain them to you? I want you to help me understand her, Marco corrected, which might mean reading letters, might mean answering questions, might mean telling me when I'm being an idiot. Despite everything, Sophia smiled. That last part sounds easier. Marco's mouth curved slightly. Probably. They sat in silence for a moment. The coffee shop hummed around them, oblivious. What happens if I say no? Sophia asked. Marco's expression didn't change. Nothing. You go back to your life. I go back to mine. And my grandmother's last wish stays unfulfilled, but that's not your burden. And if I say yes, Marco's gaze held hers, then we figure out what that means together. Sophia's heart hammered. This was crazy. She was a nurse from Queens. He was. She didn't even know exactly what he was. But she knew it was complicated, possibly dangerous, definitely not smart. But Maria's words echoed in her head. Kindness that wasn't performance. And beneath all her very reasonable objections, Sophia felt something else. Curiosity. Connection. The strange sense that this mattered in a way she couldn't explain. She picked up the second envelope. I'm going to read this, she said. And then I'll decide. Marco nodded once. That's all I ask. Sophia stood, tucking both letters into her bag. I'll text you. When I know. Marco stood as well. Thank you, Sophia, for considering it. She met his eyes. Up close, they were even darker than she remembered. And warmer. Don't thank me yet, she said. I might still run away screaming. Marco's smile was brief but genuine. That's fair. Sophia turned to leave, then stopped. Marco! Yes! Your grandmother loved you very much. His expression softened, grief flickering through. I know. That's the part that makes all of this complicated. Sophia nodded, understanding more than she wanted to. She walked out into the gray November afternoon, letters in her bag, her normal life feeling very far away. That night, Sophia sat on her couch with tea, her phone silenced, the apartment quiet. She opened the second envelope. Inside were 4 pages, front and back, filled with Maria's careful handwriting. Sophia took a breath and began to read. Query to Sophia, you chose to read this. That tells me something important. You're curious. You're brave. Or maybe you're just kind enough to honor an old woman's dying wish. Whatever the reason, you're here now. So let me tell you what I couldn't say in that hospital room with my grandson watching, with death breathing down my neck. Marco Russo is my blood, my heart, the best thing I ever helped create. But he's also the inheritor of something dark, something I brought with me across the ocean when I was young and desperate. I told you I came here to expand my father's operations. That's true. What I didn't say is that those operations were built on violence, on fear, on taking what others wouldn't give freely. The Lisbon docks weren't just shipping routes. They were pipelines, drugs, weapons, people who disappeared when they asked too many questions. I was 17 when my father sent me to New York, pregnant with Marco's father. Alone but not unprotected, he sent men with me, men who knew how to make problems disappear. I built an empire here, Sophia, not with my hands, but with my silence, with my willingness to look away, with my ability to smile at the right people and ignore the wrong things. And when Marco's father died, when Marco was just a boy, I raised him in that world. I thought I was protecting him, teaching him to survive, but what I really did was trap him. He spent the last 10 years trying to climb out of that trap, legitimizing businesses, cutting ties with the old ways, refusing his father's methods. And the family, they've allowed it because I asked them to, because I still held weight, because they respected me even when they disagreed. But I'm dying, Menina. And when I'm gone, that respect dies with me. There are men in this organization who remember the old days with fondness, who think Marco is weak, who see his compassion as liability, his cousin Antonio especially. He's been waiting for me to die so he can challenge Marco's leadership. And Marco, for all his strength, has one vulnerability. He's alone. He has advisors. He has employees. He has people who fear him and people who work for him. But he doesn't have anyone who sees him as just Marco. Not the boss. Not the heir. Just the man. That's where you come in. I'm not asking you to fix him. I'm not asking you to save him. I'm asking you to be real with him. To speak truth when everyone else speaks politics. To remind him why he's fighting so hard to be different. You'll think I'm manipulating you. Maybe I am. But I'm also trusting you with the most precious thing I have. My grandson's future. In this envelope, there's also a key. It's to a safety deposit box at Chase Bank on 5th Avenue. Box number 427. Inside that box are documents. Legal papers. Proof of transactions that certain people would prefer stayed hidden. I'm not giving these to you as leverage. I'm giving them to you as protection. Because if you choose to stand beside Marco, people will try to use you against him. And you need to know what you're standing beside. Read the documents. All of them. Then decide. If you walk away, return the key to Marco. No judgment. No guilt. But if you stay, if you choose this, know that you're not just helping him. You're choosing a different life than the one you have now. A more complicated one. Maybe a dangerous one. Choose with your eyes open, Menina. With love and hope, Maria P.S. The third page is a list of names. People Marco can trust. People who will help you if you need it. Memorize it. Then burn it. Sophia's hands trembled as she finished reading. She set the letter down and found the key Maria had mentioned, small and silver, taped to the fourth page. The third page was indeed a list. 5 names, all Portuguese, with addresses in New York and New Jersey. And the fourth page was something else entirely. A letter addressed to Marco, sealed, with instructions written on the outside. Para Marco, give this to Sophia only after she's read the other letters and decided to stay. If she walks away, burn it unread. Sophia stared at that sealed letter for a long time. Then she looked at the key. A safety deposit box full of secrets. Evidence. Proof of crimes that could destroy people. This was insane. Maria had essentially given her ammunition against Marco's world, while simultaneously asking her to step into it. Unless. Sophia read the letter again, more carefully this time. Maria wasn't giving her weapons to use against Marco. She was giving her protection. Insurance. A way to ensure that if things went bad, Sophia wouldn't be helpless. That was either the most manipulative thing Sophia had ever encountered, or it was the most profound act of trust. She sat in her quiet apartment for over an hour, tea going cold, mind racing. Every logical part of her brain screamed to walk away. To return the key, thank Marco for his time, and go back to her normal life where the biggest drama was hospital politics, and whether she could afford to replace her dying laptop. But another part of her, quieter but insistent, kept circling back to one moment. Maria's face when Sophia had spoken Portuguese. The pure relief, the way she'd gripped Sophia's hand like she'd found something she'd been searching for. And Marco, the way he'd looked at his grandmother. The way he'd offered Sophia an exit at every turn. The way he'd said that's fair when she'd suggested she might run away screaming. He didn't want to trap her. He wanted. What did he want? Sophia picked up her phone. It was nearly midnight. She opened her messages, Marco's number still saved from yesterday. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. Then she typed, Sophia, I read the letters. All of them. I have questions. She hit send before she could overthink it. The response came within seconds, like he'd been waiting. Marco asked them, Sophia, the safety deposit box. Have you seen what's in it? Marco, no. She told me about it 2 months ago, but said it wasn't for me. I assumed she meant her will. Sophia, it's not her will. A pause. Marco, what is it? Sophia, evidence. Documents. Things that could hurt people in your organization. Another pause, longer this time. Marco, and she gave you the key. Sophia, yes. Marco, why? Sophia, she said it was protection. For me. If I chose to help you. The dots appeared and disappeared several times. Sophia could almost feel Marco processing that, trying to understand his grandmother's logic. Marco, that sounds like her. Protect everyone except herself. Sophia, there's also a letter for you. But she said I should only give it to you if I decide to stay. Marco, and have you? Sophia stared at that question. Have you decided? She looked around her apartment. Safe, small, predictable. A good life. Not an exciting one, but a peaceful one. Then she thought about Maria's face, about the way Marco had kissed his grandmother's hand, about the fact that an old woman had trusted her with something so important she'd literally saved it for her deathbed. Sophia typed slowly. Sophia, I want to see what's in the box first. Marco, that's smart. Sophia, can you meet me tomorrow? At the bank. Marco, what time? Sophia, I'm off at 3. 3:30? Marco, I'll be there. Sophia set the phone down. Her heart was racing. She'd just agreed to open a safety deposit box full of criminal evidence with a man she barely knew. This was either the bravest or stupidest thing she'd ever done. Possibly both. The next morning, Sophia worked her shift in a daze. She smiled at patients, administered medications, updated charts, but her mind was somewhere else entirely. What would be in that box? What had Maria documented? And more importantly, what would Sophia do with whatever she found? By 3:15, she changed into civilian clothes, dark jeans, a sweater, her practical winter coat. She looked like every other New Yorker, anonymous and purposeful. The bank was quiet, sterile, all marble and glass and hushed voices. Sophia waited in the lobby, the key in her pocket feeling like it weighed 10 pounds. At 3:28, Marco walked in. He was dressed simply today, dark pants, a black sweater, no coat despite the cold. He moved through the space with that same controlled grace, and Sophia realized with a start that people noticed him. Not obviously, but there were glances, double takes, a subtle widening of space as he passed. People recognized danger when they saw it, even if they couldn't name it. Marco's eyes found her immediately. He crossed to her, stopping a respectful distance away. Sophia! Marco! They stood there for a moment, the weight of what they were about to do hanging between them. You're sure about this? Marco asked quietly. Sophia nodded. Are you? His mouth curved slightly. My grandmother apparently trusted you with our family secrets. So yes, I'm sure. They approached the desk together. Sophia showed the key and ID. The bank employee, an older woman with kind eyes, led them to the vault. Take your time, she said, then discreetly withdrew. The safety deposit box was medium-sized, nondescript. Marco lifted it onto the table in the small private room, but he didn't open it. He looked at Sophia instead. Whatever's in here, he said carefully. If it changes your mind about helping me, I'll understand. Sophia met his gaze. And if it doesn't? Something flickered in his eyes. Hope maybe. Or fear. Then we deal with it together. Sophia opened the box. Inside were folders. Neat, labeled, organized with the precision of someone who knew exactly what she was documenting. Sophia pulled out the first folder. It was labeled Transportes, 1992 to 1998. She opened it. Inside were shipping manifests, receipts, handwritten notes in Portuguese, all detailing shipments from Lisbon to New York. Most appeared legitimate, but several had Maria's handwriting in the margins, noting extra cargo or special handling. Marco leaned over her shoulder, close enough that she could feel his heat. She was tracking everything, he murmured. Why? Sophia asked. Insurance, Marco said. Or evidence, depending on who needed it. The next folder was labeled Pagamentos Antonio. Payments Antonio. Sophia opened it. Inside were bank records, cash withdrawal receipts, photographs of meetings, all involving a man Sophia assumed was Antonio, Marco's cousin. She was keeping tabs on him, Marco said, voice tight. The third folder made Sophia's breath catch. It was labeled Para Proteco de Sofia, for Sophia's protection. Inside was a single document, a deed, to a small apartment in Queens. Sophia's apartment. She looked at Marco, confused. I don't understand. Marco was staring at the deed, his expression unreadable. When did you sign your lease? 2 years ago, Sophia said. Through a management company. Why? Marco pointed at the document. This says my grandmother bought your building 18 months ago. Sophia's stomach dropped. What? She owned your building, Marco said slowly, like he was working it out as he spoke. She knew where you lived because she was your landlord. Sophia's hands trembled. That's crazy. Why would she do that? Marco was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, because she was protecting you before she even met you. That doesn't make sense. It does if you know how her mind worked, Marco said. He pulled out a chair for Sophia, who sat numbly. My grandmother believed in signs, in fate, in the universe arranging things. What are you saying? Marco sat across from her. I'm saying she somehow knew you were important, long before she met you. If you're hooked on the story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Sophia shook her head. That's impossible. I'm nobody. I'm just a nurse who happened to speak Portuguese. Are you sure about that? Marco asked gently. Sophia opened her mouth, then closed it, because suddenly she was remembering things. Small things that hadn't seemed significant before. The management company that had approved her application immediately, despite her mediocre credit. The rent that was suspiciously affordable for Queens. The elderly Portuguese woman she'd helped once in the lobby 2 years ago, who'd asked her name and where she was from, and seemed so pleased to meet her. Oh my God, Sophia whispered. Marco nodded. She was testing you. Before her health got bad, seeing what kind of person you were. And I passed some kind of test? You were kind, Marco said simply. You helped someone who didn't speak English. You smiled. You didn't rush. And you spoke Portuguese. Sophia laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. So she bought my building and waited for the universe to bring me to her hospital room. She was dying, Marco said. She'd been sick for months. She knew time was running out. And yes, I think she was waiting for you. Sophia stared at the deed. Her apartment. Her home. Owned by Maria Russo all along. Why didn't she just approach me? Sophia asked. Why the elaborate setup? Marco's smile was sad. Because she needed to know it was real. That your kindness wasn't performance. That you'd stop to help a dying woman, even when you didn't know who she was. Sophia's throat tightened. This is manipulative. Yes. And calculated. Yes. And completely insane. Also yes, Marco agreed. He leaned forward. But it's also love. Twisted, overprotective, manipulative love. But love nonetheless. Sophia looked to the other folders in the box. What else is in here? They spent the next hour going through everything. More financial records. More photos. More evidence of deals and meetings and transactions that painted a vivid picture of Maria's world. And woven through it all was protection. Not just for Marco, but for Sophia. Paid off debts Sophia never knew existed. Insurance policies. Contact information for lawyers and doctors, and people who could help in emergencies. Maria had built a safety net for Sophia before Sophia even knew she needed one. It should have been creepy, invasive, wrong. Instead, Sophia found herself crying. She barely knew me, Sophia whispered, wiping her eyes. Marco handed her a tissue from the box on the table. She knew enough. Sophia looked at him, really looked at him, at the grief still etched around his eyes, at the tension in his shoulders, at the way he held himself so carefully, like he was afraid of taking up too much space. Tell me the truth, Sophia said. Why do you need my help? Marco was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because everyone in my life wants something from me. Power, money, protection, access. They see Marco Russo the boss. Marco Russo the heir. Marco Russo who signs checks and makes decisions. He paused. But you met me as the grandson of a dying woman. You saw me grieve. You saw me vulnerable. And you didn't try to use it. Sophia swallowed. I still don't understand what I'm supposed to do. Marco pulled out his phone and showed her a message thread. This is my cousin Antonio. He's been texting me daily since my grandmother's funeral. Sophia read the messages. They were polite on the surface, but there was pressure underneath. Questions about meetings. Suggestions about returning to traditional methods. Thinly veiled criticisms of Marco's soft approach. He's pushing, Sophia said. He's testing, Marco corrected. Seeing where my boundaries are now that Vovo is gone. Seeing if I'll bend. And will you? Marco's eyes hardened. No. Sophia believed him. So where do I fit in? Marco locked his phone. My grandmother's letters. The ones I got. They're in Portuguese. I understand the words, but I don't always understand the meaning. The subtext. The wisdom she was trying to pass on. You want me to translate them? I want you to help me understand her, Marco said. And I want someone in my life who isn't afraid to tell me when I'm wrong. Who doesn't have an agenda. Who? He trailed off. Who what? Sophia prompted. Marco met her eyes. Who makes me feel like I'm not alone. The honesty of that statement hit Sophia square in the chest. She thought about Maria's letter, about the choice she was being offered, about the fact that she was already sitting in a bank vault, reading criminal evidence, helping a man she'd known for less than a week. She'd already chosen. She just hadn't admitted it yet. Okay, Sophia said quietly. Marco blinked. Okay, I'll help you, Sophia said. I'll translate your grandmother's letters. I'll tell you when you're being an idiot. I'll be your friend, if you need one. Marco stared at her. Just like that. Sophia smiled despite herself. Your grandmother went to elaborate lengths to engineer this. It would be rude to disappoint her. Marco laughed, a real laugh that transformed his face. She'd appreciate that logic. Sophia stood, gathering the folders. But I have conditions. Name them. First, I want to know what I'm walking into. All of it. No sugarcoating, no protecting me from uncomfortable truths. Marco nodded. Agreed. Second, if I'm in danger, you tell me immediately. No downplaying, no assuming you can handle it. Agreed. Third, Sophia said, meeting his eyes. You let me decide my own boundaries. I'm not signing up to be part of your organization. I'm not signing up to break laws. I'm helping you as a friend. That's it. Marco stood as well. I wouldn't want anything else. Sophia held out her hand. Then we have a deal. Marco took her hand. His palm was warm, his grip firm but careful. The contact sent that same jolt through Sophia, unexpected and electric. They stood there for a moment, hands clasped, surrounded by evidence of crimes and secrets, and a dead woman's matchmaking scheme. Thank you, Marco said quietly, for choosing this, for giving my grandmother's wish a chance. Sophia squeezed his hand once, then let go. Don't thank me yet. I still might run away screaming. Marco's smile was small but genuine. That's fair. They left the bank together, stepping out into the gray afternoon. The city rushed past them, indifferent as always. What now? Sophia asked. Marco pulled out his phone. Now I show you something. If you're really in this, you need to see where I work. Sophia's stomach flipped. Your office. My restaurant, Marco corrected. The legitimate side of things. He flagged down a car, not a taxi, a black sedan that appeared within seconds. The driver nodded to Marco with familiarity. Sophia climbed in, and Marco slid in beside her. Not close enough to crowd her, but close enough that she was aware of him. Always aware of him. The restaurant was in Tribeca, nestled on a quiet street with a simple sign. Russo's. Original, Sophia said. Marco's mouth curved. My grandmother named it. Subtlety wasn't her strong suit. Inside, the space was beautiful. Warm lighting, exposed brick, white tablecloths, fresh flowers. It smelled like garlic and wine and bread. Sophia's stomach rumbled embarrassingly. When did you last eat? Marco asked, noticing. Breakfast, Sophia admitted. Marco guided her to a quiet corner booth. Then we fix that first. A waiter appeared immediately, young, nervous, respectful. Mr. Russo, we didn't know you were coming. It's fine, Luca. We'll have the special. Both of us. And water. The waiter nodded and disappeared. Sophia raised an eyebrow. You order for everyone. Only when they haven't eaten all day and are too polite to admit they're starving, Marco replied. He leaned back, studying her. Tell me something about yourself. Something real. Sophia blinked at the shift in topic. Like what? Like why you became a nurse. Or where you learned Portuguese. Or what you do when you're not saving dying women from dying without being understood. Sophia smiled. That's specific. I'm curious. Sophia took a sip of the water that had appeared. I learned Portuguese from my grandmother. She raised me after my parents died. Car accident when I was 8. Marco's expression softened. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago, Sophia said. But her throat tightened anyway. My avu, she was everything. She taught me the language, the cooking, the music. She taught me to be kind even when the world wasn't. She sounds like my grandmother, Marco said quietly. Maybe that's why I stopped in that hospital room, Sophia said. Maria reminded me of her. The way she looked at me. The way she needed something I could give. Marco nodded. And the nursing? I wanted to help people, Sophia said simply. After my Avo died, I felt lost. Nursing gave me purpose, structure, a way to make sure no one felt alone when they were scared. Marco was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You're a better person than most people I know. Sophia laughed. You don't know many people. I know enough. The food arrived. Homemade pasta with a sauce that smelled like heaven. Fresh bread. Simple. Perfect, comforting. Sophia took a bite and made an involuntary sound of appreciation. Marco's smile widened. Good. Incredible, Sophia admitted. Who's your chef? Angelo. He's been with us for 20 years. Taught me everything I know about running this place. You cook? Sophia asked, surprised. Not well, Marco admitted. But I know food. I know what matters. Quality, consistency, treating people right. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Sophia asked the question that had been building. Tell me about Antonio. Marco set down his fork. He's my cousin. 4 years older. He thinks he should have inherited leadership of the family because he's older and because he's more willing to do things my way. What way? Marco met her eyes. The violent way. Sophia swallowed. And you're not. I'll do what's necessary, Marco said carefully. But I don't lead with violence. I don't enjoy it. And I don't think it's sustainable. Your grandmother agreed. She did, Marco said. Which is why she supported me. But Antonio and his father, my Uncle Dante, they've been patient. Waiting. For her to die, Sophia said quietly. Marco nodded. And now she has. So the patience is over. Sophia pushed her pasta around her plate. What do they want? Control, Marco said. They want to go back to the old ways. Drugs, extortion, intimidation. They think legitimacy is weakness. And you think it's survival. I know it's survival, Marco said firmly. The world's changed. Law enforcement is smarter. Money trails are harder to hide. The old ways get you caught or killed. Usually both. Sophia studied him. You really believe you can clean this up? I have to, Marco said. Because if I don't, everything my grandmother built, everything she sacrificed for, it all falls apart. Sophia heard the weight in those words. The responsibility he carried. When do I meet them? She asked. Antonio and the others. Marco tensed. You don't have to. If I'm helping you, I need to understand what we're dealing with, Sophia said. I need to see it. Marco was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, There's a meeting. Tomorrow night. Family business. I have to be there. Then I'll come with you. Sophia, these aren't friendly people. I didn't think they were, Sophia replied. But your grandmother gave me evidence against them. That means she thought I'd need to understand them. Marco stared at her like he was seeing something new. You're braver than you look. Sophia smiled. I get that a lot. After dinner, Marco drove her home. They sat in the car outside her building, the engine idling, city lights reflecting off the windshield. Thank you, Marco said. For today. For all of this. Sophia turned to look at him. In the dim light, his face was softer, more vulnerable. Your grandmother loved you very much, she said. I'm starting to understand why. Marco's eyes held hers. She would have liked you. She did like me, Sophia corrected. Enough to buy my building. Marco laughed. Fair point. Sophia reached into her bag and pulled out the sealed letter, the one Maria had left for Marco. She wanted you to have this. After I decided to stay. Marco took it carefully, like it was fragile. Did you read it? No. It's not for me. Marco nodded. He didn't open it immediately. Instead, he said, Will you be there tomorrow? At the meeting? Sophia's stomach fluttered with nerves, but she nodded. Yes. It won't be comfortable. I didn't think it would be. Marco's mouth curved slightly. You really don't scare easily. I'm terrified, Sophia admitted. But I made a promise to a dying woman. And I don't break promises. Marco's expression softened. Neither do I. Sophia opened the car door, then paused. Marco. Yes. Read the letter tonight, she said. I think your grandmother wanted you to have it before tomorrow. Marco nodded. I will. Sophia climbed out, then leaned back in. And Marco, whatever happens tomorrow, remember why you're doing this. Remember what she believed you could be. Marco's eyes held hers for a long moment. Thank you, Sophia. She nodded, then closed the door and walked into her building. In the elevator, her hands were shaking. She just agreed to walk into a room full of criminals tomorrow night. She was either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. That night, Marco sat in his apartment, the sealed letter in his hands. His grandmother's handwriting on the outside. His name in Portuguese, Para meu menino, for my boy. He broke the seal and unfolded the pages. His grandmother's words filled 4 pages, neat and careful. Marco, if Sophia gave you this, it means she chose to stay. It means I was right about her. Thank God. I'm going to tell you something now that I've never said out loud. Something I've carried for 60 years. You are not my grandson by blood. Your father, the man I raised as my son, was not mine. I found him in Lisbon, days old, abandoned near the docks. His mother was a prostitute who died in childbirth. His father unknown. I took him because I couldn't have children of my own. Because I was desperate. Because I needed someone to love in a world that had taught me only how to survive. I raised him as mine. I loved him as mine. And when you were born, you became the most precious thing in my entire world. But you're not a Russo by blood, Marco. You're a Russo by choice. By love. By the life we built together. I'm telling you this now because Antonio knows. He's known for years. He's been holding it, saving it for when I was gone, planning to use it against you. He'll say you have no claim to leadership, that you're not really family, that you don't deserve what I built. He's wrong. Family isn't blood, Menino. It's who shows up. It's who loves you when it costs them something. It's who fights for you even when it would be easier to walk away. You've been more my grandson than anyone born into this family ever could be. Sophia is going to help you understand this. Not because I told her to. Because she already knows it in her bones. She lost her real family and found family in a grandmother who wasn't blood. She understands chosen love. Trust her. Trust yourself. And don't let Antonio make you doubt what you've earned. You are Marco Russo. Not because of blood. Because of choice. And that makes you stronger than any of them. Come to do meu amor, vovô. Marco read the letter 3 times. Then he set it down carefully, walked to his window, and stared out at New York, vision blurred with tears. Not his grandmother's biological grandson. He'd been chosen, loved, built into something his grandmother believed could be better. And tomorrow, he'd walk into a room where Antonio would try to destroy that. Marco picked up his phone and opened his messages to Sophia. Marco, I read it. The response came quickly. Sophia and Marco, and she was right. About everything. Sophia, I'm sorry. I know that must have been hard to read. Marco, it was. But it also made sense. Why she wanted you here. Why she trusted you with this. Sophia, because I understand chosen family. Marco, yes. They were quiet for a moment, the messages pausing. Then Sophia typed again. Sophia, tomorrow's going to be bad, isn't it? Marco didn't lie to her. Marco, yes. Sophia, I'll be ready. Marco, Sophia. Sophia, yes? Marco, thank you for not running away. Sophia, thank you for not giving me a reason to. Marco smiled despite everything. Despite the grief and the fear and the knowledge that tomorrow, everything would change. Because he wasn't alone anymore. His grandmother had made sure of that. The next evening, Sophia stood in front of her closet, trying to figure out what one wore to a Mafia family meeting. Business casual. Too informal. Cocktail dress? Too presumptuous. Jeans. Definitely not. She settled on black pants, a burgundy blouse, and her good coat. Professional but not trying too hard. Her phone buzzed. Marco, I'm downstairs. No rush. Sophia took a breath, checked her reflection one last time, and grabbed her bag. In the car, Marco looked tense. He wore a dark suit, crisp white shirt, no tie. His jaw was set, his hand still. You okay? Sophia asked. No, Marco said honestly. But I will be. He looked at her. You can still change your mind. I know, Sophia said. I'm not going to. Marco nodded. Okay, then let me prepare you. For the next 15 minutes, as they drove through Manhattan, Marco explained what Sophia was walking into. The key players, the hierarchy, the tensions. Antonio will be the loudest voice, Marco said. He'll push boundaries, test me, probably try to embarrass me. And you'll let him? Sophia asked. To a point, Marco replied. Then I'll remind him why my grandmother chose me. With the letter. If I have to. The building they pulled up to was nondescript, an old warehouse in Red Hook that had been converted to offices. Nothing about it screamed mob headquarters, which was probably the point. Marco led Sophia inside, through a plain door, down a concrete hallway, to a heavy wooden door with 2 men standing guard. They nodded to Marco, their eyes sliding to Sophia with curiosity. She's with me, Marco said simply. They opened the door. The room beyond was surprisingly nice. Polished wood table, leather chairs, good lighting. About a dozen men sat around the table, all dressed well, all with the same controlled stillness Sophia recognized from Marco. Dangerous men pretending to be businessmen. Every eye turned to Sophia. One man, older, with silver hair and sharp eyes, smiled. Marco, you brought a guest. This is Sophia Mendez, Marco said calmly. She was with my grandmother when she passed. She's here as a translator and advisor. The silver-haired man's smile didn't reach his eyes. A translator. How thoughtful. Another man, younger, with Marco's dark coloring but crueler eyes, leaned forward. Antonio. A translator, Antonio repeated. For what? We all speak English here. For my grandmother's final wishes, Marco replied evenly, which were left in Portuguese. Antonio's smile sharpened. Of course, the sacred grandmother. Always one step ahead, even in death. Sophia felt the temperature in the room drop. Marco pulled out a chair for Sophia, then sat beside her at the head of the table. The silver-haired man, Uncle Dante, Sophia realized, spoke again. Well then, let's begin. And Sophia understood with perfect clarity this was going to be a battlefield, and she just walked in holding Marco's hand. The silence in the room was deliberate, calculated. Sophia felt it pressing against her skin like humidity before a storm. Dante folded his hands on the table. Marco, we're here to discuss the future of this family. I know why we're here, Marco replied. Antonio leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're confused about your role. Marco's expression didn't change. My role is clear. Is it? Antonio's smile was sharp. You've been making decisions without consultation, closing operations, refusing opportunities, all because you think grandmother wanted us to go soft. She wanted us to survive, Marco corrected. There's a difference. Survive, Antonio scoffed. We're not surviving, cousin. We're withering. Your legitimacy obsession is killing us. Sophia watched the other men. Some nodded. Some stayed neutral. All were listening. Marco stayed calm. The numbers say otherwise. Revenue is up. Legal exposure is down. We're building something sustainable. Sustainable and boring, Antonio shot back. Tell me, Marco, when did you become so afraid of power? I'm not afraid of power, Marco said quietly. I'm afraid of stupidity, and going back to the old ways is stupid. Dante raised a hand. Enough. Antonio, you made your point. Marco, you've made yours. Now let's discuss the real issue. Sophia felt Marco tense beside her. Leadership, Dante continued. Maria held this family together through force of personality. But she's gone, and we need to decide who leads now. That was already decided, Marco said. By Maria, Antonio interjected. Not by the family. Not by vote. By one woman who couldn't see past her favorite grandson. The words hung there, loaded. Marco's voice stayed level. You have something to say, Antonio, say it. Antonio stood slowly. He walked around the table like a prosecutor. I'll say it. Marco Russo doesn't belong at this table. Murmurs rippled through the room. Marco didn't move. Explain. You're not a Russo, Antonio said simply. Not by blood. You're adopted. A foundling my aunt took in out of pity. Sophia's stomach dropped. Several men shifted uncomfortably. Marco's face remained composed, but Sophia saw his hand tighten on the armrest. Antonio continued, triumphant. I have documents, birth records from Lisbon, proof that your father was no relation to our family, which means you have no legitimate claim to leadership. Dante looked at Marco. Is this true? Marco met his uncle's eyes. Yes. The room erupted. Voices overlapping, accusations flying. Sophia watched Marco sit still in the chaos, absorbing the impact. Then she stood. The room went quiet. Sophia, Marco said quietly. You don't have to. Yes, I do, Sophia interrupted. She looked at Antonio. You think blood is what matters? Antonio's smile was condescending. In this world? Absolutely. Sophia pulled out her phone. Then explain why Maria left me this. She held up the photo of the deed. Your aunt bought my building, protected me for 2 years, left me evidence against everyone in this room. Dante leaned forward, interested now. What kind of evidence? Financial records, Sophia said calmly. Transactions, photos, everything Maria documented about this organization. Antonio's smile faltered. You're bluffing. Am I? Sophia looked at him directly. Box 427 at Chase Bank. Go check. The room went deadly quiet. Sophia continued, her voice steady. Maria knew exactly what she was doing. She didn't choose Marco because of blood. She chose him because he was the only one with the intelligence to see that your old ways are dying. And she gave me insurance because she knew people like you would try exactly this. She turned to Dante. You want to question Marco's leadership? Fine. But know that if anything happens to him, every piece of evidence Maria collected goes to the FBI. Every transaction. Every name. Every crime. Dante stared at her. That's a bold threat, young lady. It's not a threat, Sophia replied. It's Maria's last gift to her grandson. Protection from people who mistake cruelty for strength. Antonio's face had gone red. You have no idea what you've walked into. I know exactly what I walked into, Sophia said. Your aunt brought me here for this exact moment. Marco stood slowly. He looked at Sophia, something profound in his eyes, then turned to the room. My grandmother chose me, Marco said. Not because I was born into this family, but because she believed I could lead it somewhere better. You want to challenge that? Fine. Vote. Silence. Everyone in this room, Marco continued. Vote now. Me or Antonio. Simple majority. Dante looked around the table. Show of hands. Those in favor of Antonio's leadership. 3 hands went up. Antonio's, and 2 older men Sophia didn't recognize. Those in favor of Marco. 7 hands rose. Then another. Then Dante's own hand lifted slowly. Antonio's face went white. You're making a mistake. No, Dante said quietly. I'm honoring my sister's wishes, and I'm betting on survival over pride. He looked at Marco. But you're on notice, nephew. Legitimacy is fine. But if this family suffers because you're too soft, we revisit this conversation. Marco nodded once. Fair enough. The meeting broke up slowly, men filing out, throwing glances at Sophia that ranged from curious to hostile. Antonio stopped at the door. He looked at Sophia with pure venom. You just made an enemy. I made a choice, Sophia replied. There's a difference. When the room emptied, Marco turned to Sophia. His face was unreadable. That was reckless, he said quietly. That was necessary, Sophia countered. You threatened them with federal evidence. Your grandmother gave me that evidence for exactly this reason. Marco stared at her. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. She really did choose well. Sophia's knees felt weak suddenly, adrenaline crashing. Can we leave now? Yes. Marco took her arm gently. Come on. In the car, Sophia's hands shook. The reality of what she'd just done was catching up to her. I threatened mobsters with the FBI, she whispered. You did, Marco agreed. I could have gotten us killed. Possibly. Sophia looked at him. You're very calm about this. Marco's jaw was tight. I'm not calm. I'm grateful. For what? For you showing up when you didn't have to. For defending me when no one else would. For being exactly what my grandmother knew you'd be. Sophia's throat tightened. What's that? Brave, Marco said simply. They drove in silence for several blocks. Then Marco spoke again. Antonio won't let this go. I know. He'll come after you now. To get to me. Sophia's stomach flipped. What does that mean? Marco's hands tightened on the wheel. It means you're not safe anymore. Because I helped you. Because you became important to me, Marco corrected. He glanced at her. And he saw it. Sophia processed that. So what do we do? I protect you, Marco said. Starting now. Marco didn't take Sophia home. He took her to his apartment, a penthouse in Midtown with views that stole her breath. This is temporary, he said, until I know Antonio's next move. Sophia stood by the windows, looking out at the city. You're keeping me prisoner? I'm keeping you alive, Marco replied. He came to stand beside her. Sophia, I need you to understand something. Antonio doesn't make empty threats. If he thinks hurting you will hurt me, he'll do it. Because I stood up for you. Because he saw how I looked at you, Marco said quietly. Sophia turned to face him. How did you look at me? Marco met her eyes. Like you mattered. The air between them shifted, charged with something unspoken. Marco, you don't owe me anything, he said quickly. This situation, my grandmother's plans, the meeting tonight, none of it obligates you to stay. I can arrange protection from a distance. You can go back to your life. Sophia stepped closer. What if I don't want to go back? Marco went still. Sophia, your grandmother saw something, Sophia continued. Between us, even before we met. And tonight, when I stood up in that room, I wasn't just defending you because she asked me to. Then why? Sophia's heart raced. Because somewhere between that hospital room and now, I started caring about you. Marco's eyes darkened. That's dangerous. I know. This world, my life, it's not safe for people I care about. I know that too. Marco stepped closer. Then why stay? Sophia held his gaze. Because you're not alone anymore. And neither am I. The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Marco lifted his hand slowly, giving her time to move away. When she didn't, he cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek. I don't want you hurt because of me, he whispered. Then don't hurt me, Sophia replied. Everything else we'll handle together. Marco kissed her. Soft at first, careful, like he was afraid she'd break. But when Sophia's hands found his chest, when she kissed him back with certainty, something in him broke free. The kiss deepened. His arms came around her, solid and warm. Sophia melted into him, feeling safe despite every logical reason she shouldn't. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Marco rested his forehead against hers. This changes everything, he murmured. I know, Sophia whispered back. Antonio will use this against us. Let him try. Marco pulled back to look at her properly. You're really not afraid? Sophia smiled. I'm terrified, but I'm also sure. Something softened in Marco's expression. Something that looked like hope. My grandmother would be so smug right now. Sophia laughed despite everything. She absolutely would. The next morning, Sophia woke up in Marco's guest room disoriented. Sunlight streamed through unfamiliar windows. It took her a moment to remember where she was. She found Marco in the kitchen, already dressed, coffee brewing. He looked like he hadn't slept. Morning, he said. Did you sleep at all? Sophia asked. Some. A lie. Coffee. Please. He poured 2 cups. They stood in the bright kitchen, the city humming below, and everything felt surreal. What happens now? Sophia asked. Now I figure out Antonio's next move, Marco said. And I make sure you're protected. By keeping me locked up here? By being smart. Marco's phone buzzed. He checked it, jaw tightening. What? Antonio posted something on the family thread. He showed her. It was a photo from last night. Sophia standing, phone in hand, looking fierce. The caption, the nurse thinks she runs things now. Sophia's stomach sank. He's making me a target. He's trying to, Marco corrected. But he doesn't know what he's dealing with. What do you mean? Marco set down his phone. You told the room about the evidence. But Antonio doesn't know what's actually in those files. He doesn't know how detailed my grandmother was. He's operating blind. And that helps us how? Because I can use his uncertainty against him. Marco looked at her. But I need your help. What do you need? I need you to trust me, Marco said. And I need you to do something that's going to sound insane. 2 hours later, Sophia sat in a coffee shop in the West Village, hands wrapped around a latte, heart pounding. Marco sat across the street in a parked car, watching through tinted windows. The plan was simple. Antonio would send someone to follow Sophia. They needed to know who and how many. So Sophia was bait. She hated it. Marco hated it more. But they both agreed it was necessary. Sophia's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. You shouldn't have spoken last night. Sophia's pulse jumped. She showed no reaction, just sipped her coffee. Unknown. Marco can't protect you. Not really. Sophia typed back, hand steady despite her fear. Sophia, then why are you texting instead of doing something about it? A pause. Unknown, cute. Enjoy your coffee while you can. Sophia locked her phone and stood, leaving cash on the table. She walked outside, following the route Marco had planned. In her ear, a tiny comm device Marco had given her crackled. I see 2 men, Marco's voice said quietly. One behind you, one across the street. Stay calm. Sophia walked 4 more blocks, letting them follow. Then she turned into a bookstore Marco had chosen. Narrow aisles, multiple exits. The men followed her inside. Sophia browsed, pretending to care about bestsellers, while Marco's voice guided her. Back exit in 30 seconds. Go. Sophia moved casually toward the back, then slipped through the employee entrance Marco had arranged access to. She came out in an alley where Marco's car waited, engine running. She jumped in. Marco pulled away smoothly. Did it work? Sophia asked. Perfectly. Marco showed her his phone. I got photos of both men. I know who they work for now. Antonio. No. Marco's expression was grim. My uncle Dante. Sophia's blood ran cold. The one who voted for you. The same. Marco's jaw clenched. He's playing both sides. What does that mean for us? Marco drove in silence for a moment. Then he said, It means we can't trust anyone in the family. And it means we need to move faster than I thought. That night, Marco made calls. Quiet, careful, strategic calls. Sophia listened from the couch, piecing together what he was doing. He was reaching out to the legitimate business partners, the restaurant suppliers, the property managers, the accountants, building a coalition outside the family structure. When he finished, he sat beside her, exhaustion in every line of his body. You're isolating yourself from them, Sophia said. I'm protecting what matters, Marco corrected. If I can't trust the family, I build something they can't touch. That's risky. Everything is risky now. He looked at her. I'm sorry I dragged you into this. Sophia took his hand. You didn't drag me. I walked involuntarily. Remember? Marco's fingers tightened around hers. You could still walk out. I could, Sophia agreed. But I won't. Why not? Sophia turned to face him fully. Because your grandmother was right. You are good, better than your world. And you deserve someone who sees that. Marco's eyes held hers, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. I don't know how to do this, he admitted quietly. Care about someone while keeping them safe from my life. Then we figure it out together, Sophia said. One day at a time. Marco pulled her closer, and Sophia let herself be held, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her cheek. My grandmother really did plan this perfectly, Marco murmured. Sophia smiled against his chest. She knew what she was doing. She usually did. They sat in comfortable silence until Sophia's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The message was a photo. Sophia's apartment building. Taken today. The message underneath. Cute place. Sophia's blood turned to ice. She showed Marco. His expression went dark. Dangerous. They've been to your apartment. But no one's there, Sophia said. Right. Marco was already on his phone calling someone. Leo. Check Sophia's apartment. Now. A pause. Yes, now. He hung up. My guy will check it out. 10 minutes later, his phone rang. Marco answered, listened, and his face went cold. What? Sophia asked, dread filling her stomach. They left something, Marco said quietly. A dead bouquet on your doorstep. And a note. What did the note say? Marco's eyes met hers, protective fury barely contained. It said, "Flowers for the funeral." Sophia sat frozen while Marco made more calls. His voice was controlled, but she heard the rage underneath. When he finished, he came back to her. "You're not leaving my sight," he said. "Not until this is handled." "How will you handle it?" "By making it clear that touching you means war." Marco's expression was harder than she'd ever seen. "And by ensuring Antonio understands he miscalculated." "Marco, I don't want you starting a war over me." "It's not about you," Marco said, though his eyes said otherwise. "It's about respect. About lines that don't get crossed. Antonio threatened you in your home. That's not a warning. That's a declaration." Sophia swallowed hard. "What are you going to do?" "What I should have done after the meeting," Marco said. "Remind everyone why my grandmother trusted me to lead." The next day, Marco called another meeting. But this time, it wasn't at the warehouse. It was at his restaurant, in broad daylight, with Sophia sitting beside him. The same men filed in, confusion and curiosity on their faces. Antonio arrived last, smirking. "Another meeting? What's wrong, Marco? Missing the attention?" "Sit down," Marco said calmly. Something in his tone made Antonio hesitate. He sat. Marco stood. "Yesterday, someone left a threat at Sophia's apartment. A dead bouquet and a note promising violence." Dante frowned. "Who would do that?" "That's what I wanted to ask," Marco replied. He looked around the table. "Anyone here want to claim credit?" Silence. Marco pulled out his phone. "Because I have security footage from Sophia's building. And I have a very clear image of who delivered the flowers." He displayed the photo. A man Sophia didn't recognize, but several people at the table did. "That's Enzo," one of the younger men said. "Antonio's guy." Antonio's smile vanished. "So what? Maybe he has a girlfriend in that building." "With a note threatening her life." Marco's voice was ice. "Try again." Antonio leaned back. "Maybe you should ask your pet nurse if she's been making enemies." "The only enemy she's made," Marco said quietly, "is you. Because she stood up for me when you tried to humiliate me with my adoption." The room shifted uncomfortably. Marco continued, "Let me be very clear about something. Sofia Mendez is under my protection. Any threat to her is a threat to me. Any action taken against her will be met with appropriate response." "Appropriate response," Antonio scoffed. "What are you going to do? Legitimize them to death?" Marco smiled, and it wasn't kind. "No, I'm going to use what my grandmother left me." He nodded to Sophia, who pulled out a folder. Inside were copies of documents from Maria's safety deposit box. "These," Marco said, "are financial records. Specifically, records of Antonio's personal transactions over the last 5 years. Transactions my grandmother documented very carefully." Antonio went pale. "Turns out," Marco continued, "you've been skimming from family operations. Small amounts, but consistent. Laundering it through offshore accounts my grandmother tracked meticulously." He slid the papers across the table to Dante. "That's ridiculous," Antonio sputtered. "Is it?" Marco's voice stayed calm. "Because I also have timestamps, account numbers, and recipient information. Everything needed to prove you've been stealing from this family while accusing me of weakness." Dante read through the papers, his expression darkening. "Antonio, it's lies," Antonio insisted. "It's my mother's handwriting," Dante said coldly. "And her records were never wrong." Marco looked at Antonio. "You wanted to question my leadership? Fine. But before you do that again, remember that my grandmother saw you coming. She documented everything. And she gave Sophia all of it to protect both of us." He leaned forward. "So here's what happens now. You leave Sophia alone. You stop undermining my decisions. And you consider whether you want to remain in this family at all. Because if one more flower shows up at her door, if one more threat is made, I will release every document my grandmother left me. To the FBI, to the IRS, to anyone who'll listen. And you'll be the first one buried." The room was silent. Dante looked at his son. "You have something to say?" Antonio's jaw worked. Finally, he stood. "Fine. She's protected. For now." "Not for now," Marco corrected. "Permanently. Or we have a different conversation." Antonio left without another word. When the room cleared, Dante approached Marco. "You handled that well." "I handled it like my grandmother would have," Marco replied. Dante nodded slowly. "She'd be proud." He glanced at Sophia. "Both of you." When they were alone, Sophia let out a shaky breath. "Did that really just happen?" "Yes. And it worked." "For now," Marco said. "Antonio's not stupid. He'll stay quiet for a while." Sophia looked at him. "You just went to war for me." "I protected what matters," Marco corrected gently. He took her hand. "And you matter, Sophia. More than you know." Sophia's eyes burned. "Your grandmother would be very smug right now." Marco smiled. "She really would." 3 months later, Sophia stood in Marco's restaurant, watching him work the room. He moved with confidence, greeting guests, checking on tables, completely in his element. The family had stabilized. Antonio kept his distance. The legitimate businesses thrived. And Sophia had somehow become a fixture in Marco's life, translating not just Portuguese, but his grandmother's wisdom, his own doubts, the complicated feelings neither of them had expected. Mia appeared beside her, sipping wine. "So, you're basically dating a mob boss." Sophia laughed. "Former mob boss. Mostly." "Does it still feel surreal?" "Every day," Sophia admitted. "But also right. Does that make sense?" "It does when you look at him the way you do," Mia said. "Like he hung the moon." "He didn't hang the moon," Sophia protested. "But he'd try if you asked," Mia countered. Marco caught Sophia's eye across the room. He smiled, and Sophia's heart flipped the way it always did. Later, they walked along the river, the same spot where Maria had somehow known they'd end up. "I've been thinking about my grandmother," Marco said. "Yeah. She left me one more letter," Marco said. "I found it last week. In her apartment, tucked inside her Bible." "What did it say?" Marco pulled it out, unfolding it carefully. He read aloud in Portuguese, then translated for clarity. "My dearest Marco, if you're reading this, it means everything worked. Sophia stayed. You fell in love, and you're building something better. I'm sorry for the manipulation, for the secrets, for pushing you toward someone you didn't choose freely. Except you did choose her. The moment you saw her in that hospital room, the moment you gave her your card, the moment you trusted her with our family's darkest secrets. I just gave you permission. Love isn't about blood. It's about choice, about showing up, about being brave enough to let someone matter. You and Sophia both know this. You've both lived it. That's why I knew you'd understand each other. Be happy, meu menino. Be better than we were. And love her with the same fierceness you've used to protect this family. Come to do meu amor, vovô." Sophia's eyes were wet. She really did have it all planned. "She really did," Marco agreed. He folded the letter carefully, then turned to Sophia. "There's one more thing." "What?" Marco pulled a small box from his pocket. Not a ring box. Something else. Inside was a key. "It's to my grandmother's apartment in Lisbon," Marco said. "I inherited it, and I thought, maybe we could go there together. See where she came from. Understand her story properly." Sophia's heart swelled. "You want me to go to Portugal with you?" "I want you to go everywhere with me," Marco corrected. "But Portugal seems like a good start." Sophia took the key, then pulled Marco close. "Your grandmother was a manipulative genius." "She was," Marco agreed. "But she was right about one thing." "What's that?" Marco cupped her face gently. "You were exactly what I needed, and I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." He kissed her, soft and sure, while the city moved around them, indifferent and eternal. And somewhere, Sophia liked to think, Maria Russo was watching, satisfied that her last scheme had worked perfectly. Because it had. Two people who understood chosen family had found each other. And in a world built on blood and violence and fear, they'd chosen something different. They'd chosen love. 1 year later, Sophia and Marco stood in a small church in Lisbon. Not getting married, though that was coming. Today, they were dedicating a memorial to Maria Russo. A plaque in Portuguese and English, honoring the woman who'd crossed an ocean, built an empire, and spent her last breath matchmaking from beyond the grave. The inscription read, Maria Russo 1943 to 2024. She believed family was built, not born. And love was a choice worth making every day. Marco held Sophia's hand as they stood before it. She'd hate this, Marco said. Too sentimental. She'd love it, Sophia countered. Because it's true. They stood in comfortable silence, remembering the woman who'd brought them together through sheer force of will and elaborate planning. Finally, Sophia spoke. You know what's funny? What? I came to New York to help people who couldn't speak English, Sophia said. And instead, I found someone who helped me remember what home feels like. Marco pulled her closer. Portuguese. You, Sophia corrected. You feel like home. Marco kissed her temple. My grandmother would be insufferably smug about that. She earned it, Sophia replied. They left the church hand in hand, walking through Lisbon's narrow streets, following the path Maria had walked as a girl. Behind them, the memorial stood, silent and certain. Maria Russo had crossed an ocean to build something that lasted. And in the end, the most important thing she built wasn't an empire. It was a family. A real one. The kind that chose each other every single day. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love the story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.